getting it done while having fun. And we're going to be talking about how you can create a kick-ass 2021 plan, which is going to be amazing. So if you are watching on YouTube, I'm pointing down here because this is where I monitor YouTube.
Mhm.
Um, please let us know. Say hi in the chat. And we got a few people from the ASC here with us in the studio on the Zoom. So, what's up to all of you? Which I'm super excited. And without further ado, make sure you have something to write down, some notes, a few notes, something to write on because it's going to get hot and heavy pretty quick. So, April, are you
And
ready?
do we want to maybe introduce ourselves really quick, just
Good.
the leadership team, just for those of you who, because this is such an important webinar, and I'm hoping that we can like share this out on our socials later, just for anybody who's not here with us live, but just to get a sense of who we are.
Yeah, we
You'll
should
have
do
to
that.
kind of see us in the video. I don't know. Can they see all three of us in the?
They should be able to. Nope, they just see you right now.
Oh, okay. Let me stop sharing for just a second so we can just like introduce ourselves. Does that work? All right. Why don't you guys
That's
go
not
so we
weird.
make sure
But
that
yes,
that our videos are working correctly?
cool. Yes, I will go first. My name is Gary Ware. Part of the success team here at the ASC. Also run a site called Breakthrough Play. I'm that guy that loves to use applied improvisation and the power of play to help you be more confident, um, be more creative, more collaborative, and at the end of the day, have more joy in your life, which is a necessity considering all that's going on. And I would like to pass the ball down to, she's down here for me. Uh, what's up, Rebecca? How are you?
I'm up here over here. Um, yeah, I am Rebecca, and I am the newest member to the team here. And my background and still present ground is mind, body, soul work, and been in the personal training world for a very long time in yoga, and more recently meditation. And I just do everything and hope to share with everybody else from this place of when your mind and body and soul are aligned and working, life will work. So there you
Word.
go.
Love it. And then I am Apryl Schlueter. I run a company called The Cheerful Mind, which is all focused about helping you get stuff done using productivity, passion, and play tactics. So there's a lot of overlap between the three of us, but we all come from different perspectives, but still all are rooted in some of the very important pieces of, living a life that is at your choosing, where you can be fully self-expressed, but then also get some stuff done because we are high achievers that like to do the thing, but also not to do it in this like way where it's like hustle, right? Like we want to have fun while we're doing it. So, okay, I'm going to go back and share this screen. And thank you to those of you who are here with us today. Feel free to ask questions in the chat, and I guess Gary and Rebecca will handle that for me. Okay, so this month is it 13 or is it 14? I can't remember. I think we're 13 or 14. Well, we'll see. How to create a kick-ass 2021 plan. The Accountability Success Circle, you will see we are obviously running that if you want to check us out. Just as a little plug, www.accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. Oops. Okay. So before we start, this process that we're about to share with you is a guide to a more intentional, productive, and happy life. I was mentioning that a little bit earlier. We're here to help you create a plan, but the root of this is that you're creating a plan that is going to be more in alignment with you. So, and it's going to be something that makes you happy. So we're not trying to help you set up a plan that's going to burn you down into the ground and wish that you could hide in a hole. We want you to enjoy your life, and that's what we're all about. As you kind of soak in some of this information, just know that there are no wrong answers, no hard and fast rules. We did our very first annual planning retreat this past couple weeks ago, and one of the great feedback points that we got is about the fact that this process can be catered to each specific person individually. And just even seeing when we were sharing our plans at the end of the weekend, how different they were, but then how everyone still also was able to like take really good nuggets from other people's plans, and just even showing how they would present the plan and how they were planning on moving forward. It was just like really, really great to see. So, we cherish that individuality, and we want you to take this process and make it your own. And if there's something that doesn't feel right, then tweak it to make it feel right for you. And this is just kind of like a guideline on something that you can follow if you're like, I don't know how to do this. So again, if you have questions during the webinar, if you're watching on YouTube, you can throw that in the chat. And if you're on Zoom, because you're a member of the ASC, go ahead and use the Zoom webinar chat, and Gary I'll be checking in with him to see if there's any questions that come up during as we go through the presentation. All right, so what we're talking about today, first and foremost, how to create an effective habitual annual planning session. We'll go through the actual process. Keep in mind that we did this process with a group of people over the span of a weekend, but we're going to condense all of that at a very high level today in 1 hour. We're going to talk about how to prepare for unplanned and unexpected situations amidst your plan, because we know that this year, if any year, is definitely indicative that we need to start thinking about, how to deal with things that we don't know that are coming. And then incorporating those people who are involved in your 2021 plan, right? We create this plan, but there are going to be other people who we're going to need to communicate with and let them know what our plan is so that they can help support us in our plan. And then finally, things that you need to do after your annual planning is complete, right? Because when you create the plan, there's that's the plan. And then the second part, which is probably the even harder part, is the execution. So we're going to talk primarily about the planning process, but we'll also talk about what you can do once the annual planning is over. Okay, so first and foremost, this is obviously October, and we're talking about annual planning, and we're talking about 2021. And, I'm sure that I've gotten a lot of feedback from people where they're like skeptical, like, why are we planning right now when we don't even know what we're going to do next week or tomorrow with everything that's going on in our world? A lot of things are going to change in the next couple months. How can we make a plan for all of next year? And to that, I want to say that, a lot of times we use the new year as a way to start fresh. We get that excitement and, we say like, oh, I'm going to lose 10 pounds, or I'm going to, start a business, or I'm going to quit my job, or I'm going to do, you make these claims. But the problem is that when we make these claims, yes, we're excited and we've got the inspiration to take action, but we don't think about what work is going to actually be required to make those claims happen. And that's why, most of the time by, the second or third week of January, already 60% of people who've made New Year's resolutions, like they've already given up. Right. And that's why you see a lot of people saying, like, I don't want to make New Year's resolutions because I don't want to set myself up to fail. So planning in October actually can set you up for success. And you'll see why a little bit later. A lot of times too, people will take on too much too fast because they're on that adrenaline of like the new year and they want to do all this, but then they lose steam. So that's one thing. A lot of times people set unrealistic goals. They've got a lot of other stuff that's going on in their life, and then they have even more lofty goals. So the ball gets dropped. A lot of times people don't allow for flexibility, which is super important. We'll continue to talk about that. And then finally, people don't look at a whole life view when they're planning. Just like I was saying before, like, I'm going to lose 10 pounds, or I'm going to, go on, save up all this money to go on this trip. There's a lot of things that might be happening in other areas of our life that we're not really thinking about. And so we have to really we have to set some time aside to really be realistic with the goals and the resolutions that we want to set. And I want to take a break here really quick because Rebecca and Gary got to go through the annual planning process with us during the retreat, because, even though we were facilitating the retreat all together, we all were participants as well, and we created our annual plans. And I wanted to see if you guys had any additional feedback about, going through this process in October, because I've been going through it for 5 years, so I'm sold on it. But now, just to give maybe, other people, like an additional vote of confidence, I hope, about why planning in October is beneficial.
Rebecca, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can go. Well, it was a new concept to me to utilize. It was Columbus Day weekend, and I know that I really felt like this deep settling in my system of I don't say I'm a procrastinator, but I definitely juggle a lot of things. And to take the whole weekend and to realize that I still had all this time moving forward, and that in the future, it felt like a really doable thing. Like, okay, every year this weekend is always the same. And now I love structure. And so this is a great structure for me to start to implement, which I just have never used anything like this. I've always been that December person, or even at the beginning of January, I'm making excuses. I'm also okay with that. It kind of goes into be flexible, but all right, well, now it's January. Now I'm going to look at my year, but this feels just really supportive and feels like I can really establish a great foundation versus wait till December, January when stuff's already up in the air. And then I'm just starting to piece stuff together, and it feels a little more superficial at that point. So
awesome.
Agreed. Yeah, for me, this is my second year working with Apryl on this. And yeah, it's just, I love the framework. I love how it is customizable. And just like what Apryl mentioned at the start, getting a head start on this, doesn't mean that it's done and locked in, but at least gives you something to look forward to. After I, started putting some of that stuff down and I started walking around, it's there, right? It's always there at the top of your brain. So things started showing up. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? I should add this. I should add this. But had I waited till, and I'm in the same camp as Rebecca of it's maybe the end of December or February when, these things are starting to, get a little bit more concrete, then that much more time has passed before my brain had a chance to think of these awesome ideas. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Awesome. And the other thing that I, made sure to mention it as we were going through the retreat is in November, we've got Thanksgiving for those of us in the US, and then December is the holidays, people who celebrate Christmas and, all the wonderful holidays in preparation for the new year. And the last thing that you want to be doing is trying to plan 2021 while you're trying to be present and spending time with those you love, and just taking a break if you need it, right? Especially after this year. So I like October as a great time to start thinking, because you can kick it off with that weekend and then take the rest of October and, the first half of November, and then just kind of cruise for the rest of the holidays, but still have that time if you have the energy, but you don't feel the pressure of I need to start on the right foot, because by the time you get to January, if you were planning in October, you'll already be there. Because you will take the adrenaline from an annual planning weekend or annual planning session and run with it. And so that's that. So I think one of the questions that does come up this year in particular with everything that's going on is this one. But what about COVID? Right? I mean, there's still, to this day, we don't know what is going on and what is the right thing to do. There's a lot of, confusion, and, I believe that wearing a mask is the way to go, and it's not a difficult thing, and, it doesn't guarantee, but, it's still such a prevalent thing, especially, now even in my area where I'm at, cases are starting to rise again because, we don't have beautiful outdoor weather to stay out in. And so, we need to think about this, but we can still do a plan despite that. And Gary, do you want to speak a little bit about just this idea of how we can have a plan, but allow ourselves to pivot when we get information?
Yeah. So two things. One, I'll speak on it, and then I'll share a quick magic trick. Does everyone like magic? Hopefully you do. But it's one of those things that helped me this year by having the themes for the year. It's still like it's interesting. Like when I was thinking about 2020, some of the things that I wanted to explore and play around with was the whole thing of experimentation. That was one of my themes. Consistency was another one of my things. Joy was one of my things. And yes, at the start of 2020, I had all of these sort of projects that I wanted to work on. Some of which is doing more and more workshops in person. But as you know, like COVID happened and a lot of things got shaken up. But the cool thing about us and being human is that we are resilient. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my other camera. So as you can see here is a puzzle, and this puzzle represents us, planning our year, whether it's 2020, 2021. We go through the process and we have everything in place, and it feels good. It feels solid. But one of the things that can happen, and it definitely happened this year with COVID, is things out of the ordinary, out of our control happens. We have a global pandemic that that keeps us from doing the things that we want to do. Maybe the way that we operate our business completely taken away. Some people lost their jobs. Other people, things happen. And without that, we feel a little bit broken. We feel a little bit incomplete. But like I said, us humans are so resilient. We have the ability to shift. We have the ability to look at things differently and maybe renegotiate things. We have the ability to maybe rearrange and do things with different timing. And if you have that sort of resilient mindset, you'll find that regardless of what's going on in the world, you still have a way of putting yourself back together again. And when you put things in, everything still fits into place, just like how it was. So that is a metaphor, but that is how 2020, 2021, COVID, non-COVID, and actually, to be honest, why it's important to start in October and follow this process, so that when things out of the ordinary comes and throws you off your A game, you at least have a backup plan. And also, I know there are some things that are out of that are still uncertain for 2021, but at least you can start to think of like, what are those buckets you want to spend your time on?
Yes. I know that I'm not the best tech person, so I was like hoping that was able to zoom in on your video, but I just stopped.
Which you did.
I tried. I don't know.
You did amazing.
We got a couple other people who've joined the webinar, so hey guys. All right, I'm going to share my screen again so you can see our lovely faces, but we're going to go back. So yes, COVID's going to be there, and it's still probably going to be something that's prevalent over the next 6 to 12 months. And so we have, I mentioned earlier that we need to be flexible, but, even more so in the next years as we're creating these plans. So next, when you're going to do a planning session, you have some ingredients, you need some tools, you need some stuff. So what we had done for the annual planning retreat, and this you can do this on your own. But you obviously need some sort of comfortable space. You definitely need to eliminate regular daily distractions. So one of the things that I told everybody for the retreat was, I sent my kids to my parents' house. And they spent the whole weekend there. And I told my husband that, he had to either join us for the retreat or he needed to make himself useful. So he did a lot of planning that was supplemental to me throughout that weekend, which was really, really helpful. But I needed to not be distracted. And so it was really nice that he, made sure I was fed because I probably would have worked the whole weekend through. But you need to be able to have that space and not have, extra chatter. So you need to, either last year I went to New York and I locked myself in a hotel room and did it there. So, but just to have, that space. And if you need to communicate to people that you need to not be distracted for a certain amount of time, that would be ideal. you need somewhere to write. I encourage everyone when you're doing this process to get off of your computer, because there's a level of creativity, and if you're writing things down, it has a different feel than just like typing up a plan on your computer. You might end up deciding that you want to put your plan in a electronic document later, but actually having to write down stuff is more fun. Dedicated time for it. So I'd say at minimum, you probably need 3 to 4 hours to do this process that I'm going to walk you through. We did it over the span of a weekend, but we talked a lot about some other things in more depth. But if you're going to do this on your own, then you probably could do it in 3 to 4 hours. And then finally, you need an open and creative mind, just because, you're thinking about the future and what you want for yourself, and to be open-minded and not let however this year has gone or, what's happening in your life currently stunt what you want for yourself in the future. Okay. So there's 5 steps. The first step is to conduct a Wheel of Life exercise and also understand your values. I have on this screen a sample of the Wheel of Life that I've created for myself, and what these 2 exercises do is help you assess where you're at right now before you start the planning. You can do something like this with your family and friends. I did this with my husband last year, and we compared numbers, and we were able to kind of see, get a pulse check on where we felt we were. And the Wheel of Life is focused on your rating your satisfaction level in 8 different areas of life. Now, you could probably also go and Google Wheel of Life and find other exercises, but I broke it down the 8 areas for myself as personal development, career, fun, social relationships, health and wellness, money, family, and intimate relationships. Some may also have spirituality, which, I think in my mind I put as part of my personal development. But it's also how you define these areas. So, family could intimate relationships could be, with your significant other, or it could be the relationship with yourself. It's really how you interpret it, and you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 of your level of satisfaction in those areas. The second piece is a values assessment, which I'm not going to go into further here. This is something new that we added this year because of the fact that it's so important. And I feel like Gary and I, in our little quickie tips that we've been sharing over the last year, we keep on talking about how values are so important because they are like your moral compass, and they are the things that drive the decisions that you make and who you are as a person. So to be able to know those things before you go into planning, this is a huge opportunity to, just ground yourself in where you're at before you start thinking about where you want to be. And finally, the Wheel of Life also helps you identify what's working. And my Wheel of Life worksheet actually gets you kind of in the mindset already. And there's extra pages that get you in the mindset of, what you might want to envision for yourself for the coming year. So it not just allows you to reflect on the current state, but it kind of takes that initial pre-step before you start the actual planning. You can do the Wheel of Life at any time in the year if you'd like. I actually do a review of my areas and my satisfaction. I did it on a monthly basis this year because of everything that was going on, but you can do this at any time of the year just to get a pulse check on where you're at. Step 2 is where you start visioning. So what we had everybody in the annual planning retreat do was to take those 8 areas from the Wheel of Life, and a bunch of us had, these huge Post-it notes, and we wrote down a vision of, fast forwarding ourselves to December 31st, 2021. So it's at the very end of 2021. What do we want to see? What do we want to see happen? Are there certain accomplishments? Is there things that we want to feel? And would write things down. This picture that you see on this slide is my visioning for my family area that I did last year. And I just kind of wrote things down just because I was in a hotel room and just writing things down. But what I noticed this year with what everybody else was doing, there were some people who, had pages and they, drew stuff out, or, they took little sticky notes and, put them, on these bigger post-it notes or boards. So we really got creative, but you want to just kind of start to write things down of like what you envision on New Year's Eve 2021 going into 2022. You do them for all 8 areas of the wheel. The things that you feel will aid in your success over the year. And you just want to do a brain dump. I think I spent about 5 to 10 minutes just standing in front of a big post-it note, just trying to envision what it is that I wanted. I didn't look at any notes. I just sat with myself and just wrote some stuff down. And then you repeat this for all 8 areas of the wheel. Okay, so this is just initial like brain dumping. This is what I want to manifest in the course of the year. I'm gonna go do this and then I'll stop and see if there's any feedback from Gary and Rebecca. Step 3 is once you have these visions, then you can take a look at all the words that you wrote or however way you did your vision and take a look at creating a theme among what you see for that. So last year I created for the family area in the slide that you just saw, I looked at all the words and I was really like, the word teamwork was sticking out to me. This step is intended to help you create an overarching goal for 2021 or, for the next year, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But this is just kind of you looking at the trends in that area and summarizing them. So on this slide, you see, I shared my 2021 themes. So last year for family, it was teamwork. And this year it was almost kind of an extension of that where I said stronger together. I told everybody to, create a theme that maybe is 1 to 3 words that just kind of summarizes that area of life. So you'll see, in intimate relationships, I looked at it from the sense of, my relationship with my husband and talking about committed connection. For career, simple yet impactful. And what I started to see, and you'll see later, is that you're going to take these themes and come together with, a final theme or 2 for the entire year. So what you notice in my themes where you see like in social relationships, I say the word easy, and health and wellness, I say the word easy, in personal development, I said easy, in career, I said simple. So you'll notice when I show you what my themes are at the end of the process, you'll be able to kind of see that we're taking these and kind of condensing them even further. Okay, so I'm going to stop for a second and just stop the presentation or stop sharing for a second to just see if there's any feedback or questions that we want to answer from either chat or Gary or Rebecca, if you have any reflections or additional things to share. Oh, Gary, you're muted.
One thing to add, and I think, the evolution, of this process is why we've gotten so many amazing comments of how it's an awesome structure, but also it allowed, so many people to make it their own. The thing for me that was the big one are the themes. And I come from a place of, with my experience with improvisation, we all like our sort of thing is discovery. When we're on stage and we're creating, these amazing stories without a script, we don't go in sort of, pre-planning what we're going to say. We're out there playing and we're discovering and allowing ourselves to be delighted with what shows up. And that's what I love about the themes and following this process is those themes start to uncover themselves because, just like with values, sometimes, people have those can values that, seem nice, like on Instagram and stuff like that, but they're not really living into it. And then also I've seen, similar with themes, for the year, people like, hey, here's my theme, and it's, something that again, makes you appear a certain way. But if you go through the process, those themes start to emerge, and then you can start to see some patterns. And it was really interesting, again, working together as a community. I remember April even said, she's like, I don't want to tell you my themes just yet, but I don't know what I think about this. And things were starting to show up for April. And then, again, you start to realize like, oh, all right, this is what it is. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Rebecca, do you have anything to add?
I don't think so, but I'm just thinking of how normally I do a theme for the whole year, which I definitely will still do, but just to have that for each area of my life also helped me just hone in more. And not that I haven't met my theme or word of the year, but I know that this will be extra supportive next for 2021, just knowing, oh, okay, so don't just remember the one, but have these other 8 or more if I come up with more. But I love the theming and knowing the meaning underneath, like that's what I know, but just from the outside in to have that simplicity is really helpful. And then it's definitely a loaded square, but yeah, then it's fun to dive in from that one theme. It's really helpful.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. And I think, what is great about this is that, at the end of the weekend, the themes are, kind of what can ground you. I think when people think about, I have to have a plan, they're thinking about like all the little minutia of detail of like, what am I going to do like the first week? And then what am I going to do? What am I going to be doing? And there might be some element of that. And you're definitely going to need to, in some respects, plan some things out in more detail, but you also have a year. So what's great about, the annual themes, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, is that, even when stuff like COVID happens, you can look at these themes and say like, how can I still like make this happen? And my 2020 themes were creative confidence and expansion. And I feel like I rocked it, even though COVID happened and there was a lot of stuff that didn't turn out the way that I like had initially envisioned when I was sitting in that New York hotel room. But, it's like, what else can I do to say that, to have that be, have that be successful. And, even though this year has been like crazy, I still feel like I got a lot done. And I stuck to my themes and did what I could given the situation. All right. So I'm just going to go through the chat really quick, at least in Zoom, for the ASC people. Pat was saying, I'd love to lock myself in a hotel. I hear that's a great idea when writing a book. I agree. Also, she mentioned that, having a list handy that was provided for the other exercise, which I'm assuming is the values exercise. There was a bunch of words that helped tremendously. And it also like helped complete the wheel of life. So yeah, so that was step 1 where I was saying, focus on, doing the wheel of life exercise, but also know what your values are. I know what 4 of my main values are because I have them tattooed on my arm, and that's just, I'm starting to root myself in them. But, you go through this process and those values, can change or they can evolve with you. And, as you start to claim who you truly are. All right, back to more. So let's go back to, we have done 3 steps so far. So step 1 was doing the, assessing the current state, the wheel of life, and values assessments. Step 2, just as a reminder, because now I'm having oops. Step 2 was visioning, and step 3 was taking those visions and creating area themes. Step 4 is in 2 parts. This process was something that I came up with last year when I was, in this creative state of doing my annual planning by myself. And, I mentioned that I have been doing annual planning for about 5 years. So being in that room, I just was trying different things with all these Post-it notes. But what this process is a way to organize your vision. So a lot of what I had written as my brain dump in step 2, I'm now taking them and categorizing them into 3 different areas or 3 different categories. So 1 is S, and that just stands for sustain. These are things that you're doing now that you have in your vision that you want to continue doing. So this was my image from 2020 where I said, okay, family meetings, we had just started them in 2019, and we were still kind of finding our flow, but that was something I wanted to continue. The GPSC was, continuing to have connections with the grandparents, siblings, and cousins. Like, so making sure that extended family was definitely, solid. Continuing with PTA, I considered that as part of family because that's, supporting my kids' schools. And communication, making sure that our communication was solid. The new initiatives for 2020, this was for this year, were to figure out how to enhance executive function because both of my kids were diagnosed, or actually at the time, one of my sons was diagnosed with ADHD, and we were, planning to, get our second son evaluated. So I was trying to change processes around with how we were running our family. And it was all around executive function. How do we make sure that they are staying on top of the things that they need to do? And I mean, it's like something I geek out on anyways. New initiative was, there was some stuff about vacations that we wanted to do. We wanted to spend a little bit more time in Chicago over the summer. So we definitely got that, even though that's not in the way that we wanted. We wanted to address this issue of like no technology. So one of the things that came out of that was that my family and I have had a 4-hour no technology day each month, where we would go do an activity or, do something that was off devices. And then just making sure that we were emphasizing teamwork. So these were new things that we wanted to implement for 2020, or I wanted to implement for 2020. So you do this SNP process, you categorize your vision into those 3 categories. And the whole goal of this step is to just understand like where you're going to need to put a lot of effort into in these various areas. So, you might have stuff that you need to sustain where you might not need to expend any brain space because you just got to keep doing what you're doing. But then with the new initiatives, maybe there's some conversations that need to be had. P, which I don't think I explained yet, is for projects. Now, these are the longer, more drawn out things that might require like more serious planning and breaking down into further steps, or just have a lot of steps. And the projects are obviously the things that might consume the most time. So what's good about this process is that once you do this for all 8 areas of the wheel, if you've got a lot of projects, you might want to, trim down that vision a little bit and say like, what's actually realistic that I can complete in 2021 so that I don't like overload myself. So this is like a great way to just kind of visually see like how lofty you set your goals. But you want to take those 3 processes or three categories and take that vision and splice it up. Then the second piece is to do reverse planning. So this is a little bit where you can kind of think about what is it that you need to do over the course of the year based on, you can switch it up by month, but this is like a little bit more granular in terms of the things that you need to do. So what I have at the bottom of this slide is my reverse planning. I started by just looking by quarters. So I started with quarter 4, and I didn't want to overload myself next year because I was already thinking, I want it to be easy. So quarter 4 is all just going to be about prepping for 2022. Anything that I didn't, that I don't want to bring into 2022 with me, I'm doing in quarter 4. Quarter 3, and you can organize this planning however way you want, but quarter 3 for me was like, really thinking about transitioning back into school. Who knows what that's going to look like. I had a little project of, thinking about potentially, looking into maybe writing a kid's book or, creating resources that are specifically for kids around the work that I do, continuing to grow the ASC and the Cheerful Mind, and potentially, focusing on buying a lake house. So like, these are things that I know I need to do in the quarters. So I just walked through some of those. For mine, I split it up by the categories of, the eight areas of the wheel. Based on what I knew. You can create this reverse planning however way you want. You can go, start with December and say like, what do I need to do in December? What do I need to do in November? And work your way down. You can also just think about like December and then June, March, and January, which is the 12-6-3-1 method. That I don't know if I got that from somewhere or if that's just something that I've been using, but it just gets a little bit more granular, towards the beginning of the year because it's closer in time. So you want to just reverse plan and just think about what is it that you need to accomplish by certain, are there certain milestones, and this is your opportunity to do that. And then finally, you'll have obviously the rest of October, November, and December, and to create a to-do list with anything that that you may need to do to prepare for 2021, but also things that you're doing in 2020 that you're like, I don't want to bring this into 2021 with me. So one of the things that is on my to-do list is I need to get my website that has been just kind of in the background waiting to be loaded. I need to finish that. I'm hoping that I can do that in the next 2 months. So just creating a list of to-dos just so that you kind of have something to start from when you start taking action. And then I will take a break after this step, which is the final step of your annual planning, which is creating overall 2021 themes. So in 2020, I mentioned that my themes that I came up with were creative confidence and expansion. So when COVID hit, I really leaned on the first theme, and I was just playing the ukulele all the time, and I was just using that as a way to be creative and be confident that I could get through whatever was going to happen this year with everything that did happen. And, expansion for number 2 was more focused on let's grow the ASC. A year ago was when we switched over to a new platform. We went from 15 to 20 people to almost 300. So I would say that we were pretty successful in that. Maybe it wasn't everything that we wanted to do, but it's still a notable thing. So these are kind of your success markers at the very highest level. So taking those mini themes, you're going to create, once you do that, you're going to look at all your mini themes and choose up to 2 themes that guide your upcoming year. You want to look for trends in the words that show up. Like I was mentioning earlier, that I kept on seeing easy and simple. And I think that part of that too was just because of the fact that there's still a lot of unknowns, and I didn't want to be an overachiever and then have those plans be, curtailed. And these themes, so what I ended up with at the very end of the annual planning session is I have 2 themes for 2021: focused stability and intentional ease. Gary was mentioning a little bit earlier that I was I'm kind of seeing a trend, and I don't know if I like it. And for those of you who know me, I am a go-getter and I like to do things. And so for me to not envision doing some badass big project for 2021, I kind of sat with it for a while and was am I just chickening out, and am I just trying to take the easy road? But I know that I have a lot of stuff that I want to do, and I might as well focus on that while we still have some unknowns happening in the next 6 to 12 months. So, really dialing into stabilizing my overwhelm, because that's always something that I've fought with, and just trying to keep things easy, but, try to make impact with those things. So, okay, I'm going to take another break so that we can answer any questions or whatnot, any additional reflections from Gary and Rebecca. What do you guys have? Anything additional to say?
No, you're crushing it.
I'm meh, meh. This process, you guys, is this is the bread and butter of what I feel I'm really, really good at, because there's just so much that goes into this, and you really need to create the space and give yourself the time to plan. That's another thing. I'm just gonna get on my soapbox for a little bit. I think the issue with this whole process, and why people may not think that it's successful, is because the hardest thing that you have to do in this process is to create time for yourself to do it. Right? This is one of those things where it's yeah, it would be really great to have a 2020 plan, but I got to fight this fire first, and then I got to fight that fire first. And oh, I didn't realize, ooh, squirrel. If you don't create the space for yourself to do this, it's not going to get done. And that's why, when I started saying I'm just going to pick a weekend, make this habitual, this has been my saving grace. I feel the last 5 years that I've done this, and this is not to toot my own horn at all, but like this is how important this process is to me, and I like want people to understand that like it can be very impactful for you if you allow yourself to be open and create that space. So it's especially for busy people, it's like, yeah, this is a nice to have, right? A plan. But otherwise, would you rather be just kind of in reaction mode for another year? Like, we've had to do a lot of stuff in reaction mode this year, but like, what if you were still able to, have some stuff that you could be focused on? And Pat just said, thank you for proving this, having it set up so that I was easily able to add it to my calendar. Yeah, at the very end of the retreat, I said, just put this on your calendar now. And whether or not you choose to join us at the retreat next year, which a bunch of them said that they would do again, which made me so happy. But to just even put that on your calendar and just know that, like, I'm going to set that time aside. Sometimes just doing that, like, you can then, if some people are trying to, plan some stuff on that weekend, you can say, nope, I have an appointment with myself. I'm going to prioritize myself. That's the biggest thing. Rebecca, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I was just going to chime in and say that that the theme, or whatever you come up with for your overall theme, like it's just for you, and it can make zero sense to anybody else as long as you really know what it means. I sort of mentioned that earlier, but just to kind of add on the next level, I'm still sorting mine through, but it's like looking still like R&B. Like, no one would know what that means, but it's like restored and boosted, and because those themes kept coming up, and although I'm still playing with it, those words kept appearing. And so, like, let it be either really creative. If you're a creative person, like, don't force yourself to like fit your theme into some sort of box, whether it's coming from, oh, this sounds like a good one from the outside, or this sounds really productive. Like, just let it be whatever feels really authentic to you, so you'll connect with it on a little different, higher level.
Thanks. Gary, do you want to share what your themes are, if you're still working on them? And just so you guys know, like, there were some people who like needed to sit with the annual planning a little bit longer, and I said, that's great. You just need to, make some time for yourself to, like, give yourself the time to finish your planning if you didn't feel like you were finished. But then, hopefully if you have your themes by the end of the weekend, then that's great. So Gary, how was your process by the end of the weekend?
Yeah, for me, the number of things that kept popping up was all about intentionality. As I was evaluating the wheel of life, the things that I want to continue to grow on, I know that in order to be successful in that area, I need to be intentional and not sort of like woo, haphazardly. So intentionality is one of my like core themes. I'm still exploring like what exactly does that mean. I might adjust it. But another thing, for me, working on fitness and vitality, and feeling invigorated, especially having a young son that has lots of energy. That is one of my focus. And I don't have it written down. I have my paper behind me, but it was all along the themes of playful fitness, of how can I continue to use my expertise in the area of play to bring that into the area of fitness. I saw this amazing TED talk by this gentleman. I think his name is Carl Edwards. No, maybe not, but Edwards is in his name. But he was talking, the title is "Working Out is Not Working Out." And he was talking about how, when we were younger, we didn't say, oh, I need to go to the gym. Like, we incorporated play and physical activity, and we stayed fit. And I know times are changing and there's more time spent on apps. I'm just talking about when I was younger, and I want to bring that sort of spirit and essence back, especially with spending time with family and with my son. So that's one of my core themes for 2021.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And here's the thing, like, it's still October, so you don't have to feel like by the end of the weekend or your annual planning session that you have to like commit to anything, because a plan is a plan. You have the opportunity to change it if you need to. And so, there's a lot of things that as I was, I created my plan, and I have this like basically like this dump of tasks that I need to do, but it's also helping me, prioritize, like, okay, I know this is something that I want to do for 2021. I'm not going to work on it now. I'm not even going to look at it because it's like in my mind, like I don't need to start it now. I need to clean up and get myself to a place that where I can feel good about starting 2021 with all these things I just planned. And that kind of segues me into like the next thing, right? So we're talking about, we've gone through the plan and what's next. So, when you're done with this annual planning session, you should probably have, at the end, you'll have 2 overarching themes for the year, plus the 8, mini area themes. You'll have a list of the things that you need to continue to do just to not forget about. And then you have the new initiatives that you need to maybe do some thinking about how you're going to incorporate, and this could be like new habits or whatever, into your life. Without totally rocking everything that you want to sustain. And then the projects and thinking about how, what you're going to do when and what steps you can take right now to prepare yourself to hit the ground running on January 1st. So first and foremost, we've talked about this constantly throughout this webinar, but be open to shifts in the plan. We don't, COVID might be like on its way out, hopefully, but we still don't know what else is happening. We have no idea when vaccines are going to be available. We just don't know how long we're going to be dealing with this thing. So especially for next year, be flexible. Don't set yourself up for failure and, throw all these things in your plan that you won't be able to achieve, and then you start feeling bad about yourself. Like we don't want you to do that. Set yourself up for success. Make sure that you have in that to-do list, or when you do your reverse planning, that you've prioritized the most essential projects and initiatives. Sometimes that might become more clear as you start to, run through some of the to-do list tasks that you've created to get ready for 2021. But just know that, if something were to go, like what would make you the most happy and make you feel the most successful, if you had to pick like 1 or 2 core things, which is another way to look at, your core themes for the year. Like if you can, live those themes, can that be how you prioritize, and can the themes be focused on the things that are most important as part of your plan? One of the big things that is super important after you do the planning session is how you're going to reflect on your progress. You can do this monthly, quarterly, weekly, however way you want, but you need to create some space for yourself, not just for the planning, but to reflect back on the plan. Because if you create the plan and then you just leave it in a desk drawer or, on a file on your computer and you never come back to it, you don't really have a way to benchmark your progress and how you're doing. And then you need to also communicate with involved parties and get their support if part of your plan involves them. So, a lot of my plan, like one of the first things that I talked about with my husband when we were done with annual planning was like, hey, I know that we have been, pretty good financially, and this year has kind of been crazy, but like, I want to open this conversation about this. Because it was something on my vision. Like, I just want to make sure that there's clear communication around XYZ. And we had a conversation that day. I was able to implement it into a plan, and I was able to check that off the list. So having that communication with anybody who's involved with something that you want is essential, right? Because, we can't do all of this plan alone. And the second to last thing I want to say is, and I want to bring Rebecca on to this, is don't forget that health is wealth. We can create all these plans and we can do all these things, but if we don't pay attention to that one area of health and wellness, it's gonna impact everything that we want to do. And so, Rebecca, I don't know if you want to chime in for a couple minutes and just kind of share really quickly, your perspective, just especially from like the mind, body, soul perspective, why health is so important.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned at the very beginning, that idea of when your mind and your body and your soul are working, to say the very least, then life will work. Or you could really insert any word there, but whatever is going on in your body, mind, that's how life is going to show up. So if you find yourself kind of getting more in the external, which is not your mind, body, soul, self connection, then even more of a time to come back in. And so you might notice that there is a lot of, this is very heady stuff to be thinking about, but when you scope out, like Apryl said, without your health, does any of this even matter? You know, that one little quick thing that could happen that could derail all of this, or, you know, COVID, or it could be something not even related to that. So just realizing that even at the foundation of all of this, I kind of picture the health as like the real foundation of all of this. And what can you do every day and keep it really easy? You might already have some real great practices, or my guess is that you kind of know what you need to do and what are you not looking at. Or you might know, like, yeah, I need to remind myself to eat because I get in these working phases and just on the computer, and then all of a sudden, you know, 10 hours have gone by or whatever, and I haven't been eating or drinking enough water. So it's like, you know, that you need food, water, sleep, and you need some soul time. You need some self time. You get off the computer. You need to do some things that will recharge you energetically and spiritually. So what are those things? And it can be super simple. So you might even just write out on a piece of paper, okay, water, food, sleep, spirit. What am I doing for each? Am I staying hydrated? Because you're made of mostly water, and it's real easy to get dehydrated, especially if you're moving your body or even thinking. You know, studies have shown that you use a lot of energy to think and use your brain when you're actually doing things like this. So make sure you're getting good nutrition, but you're getting enough water. It might mean that you need to start filling up like 2 big water bottles every morning. You know what, I'm going to drink these by the end of the day. Something as simple as that. Or food wise, you know what you're eating right now. You probably know what maybe you should or shouldn't be eating right now. And what could you do every day to either, you need to prep more? Do you need to set a reminder in your phone of, hey, it's time for a little lunch break? Or do you need to plan out your meals for the whole week, or get some healthy options to snack on if you're used to grabbing some processed foods? And, you know, the sleep really matters. Sleep's like the number one thing that we all need more of. And it is that magic pill, not just for our health, but then to be productive. So you also, I definitely advise you, and this is always my weak point, check in on your sleep. Do you need to turn the screen time off? Do you need to set a bedtime for yourself? Because you've probably had those points in time where you haven't had enough sleep. And how does that go? How does the next day feel? I know for me, it makes me feel like a 2-year-old again. And I just want to like cry and sleep and take naps. And so, you know, I think I made my point at this point, but and then that other layer though of spirit and soul, if you're not feeling like connected and whole, whatever that means to you, then it's also hard to deep dive into this work or think of, you know, planning out a year of your life. So spending some time, whether it's just a few minutes in the morning to breathe, to journal, to read a book that's not related to any of this, something that's pleasurable, spending time with family or friends or what have you. So just making sure, mind, body, soul, that you're tending to those things, because yeah, they are kind of at the core of all of this. And the other big thing I would like to leave you with is 80-20 rule. I like 80-20 split. So life happens. Sometimes it's fun to just forget about all these healthy things. And it's all in this spectrum or pendulum sort of outlook of, okay, if you're living over here for a while with everything, then how can you live over here to create more balance? And so 80-20, 80% of the time I'm on it, 20% of the time I let myself have a little wiggle room, be okay with it. It's not like I map out every day or week, like what's 80% of this week, but just to have that loosely, it also gives me permission to like enjoy the extra dessert, like do the things that, oh, today I don't want to work out, and that's all right because I worked out 3 other days this week. So if that can help you at all, I hope it does. Just cutting yourself a little slack and realize that you don't have to be 100% all the time on everything. That, you know, I think an 80-20 split is a pretty great goal to reach in everything, but especially with all of these health related topics.
Awesome. Thank you. And then the final thing in terms of what's next is, how are you going to hold yourself accountable to your plan, right? It's one thing to create the plan. It's another thing to execute. And maybe the execution part is the harder part, because that's where, you know, your own head gets in the way, or, you know, you're getting in the way of your goals and dreams because of fear, or there's the distractions, or, you know, all of these things. So how are you going to hold yourself accountable? So those are all things to think about. Okay. For those of you who are not a part of the ASC, because I know that most of the people who are in with the Zoom webinar are coming in from the ASC community already, but the Accountability Success Circle is an amazing support to help you execute on this plan. I usually think about this as kind of this month as like our new year, because we kind of get everybody geared up to prepare for 2021, and the most of the rest of the year is all about execution, supporting us in those times that we're not feeling so great or we're feeling stuck, and to use that energy from the community to push forward until we get to the annual planning retreat again. And throughout that, we focus on continuing to grow who we are as people and just helping people also get stuff done. So first and foremost, we have an annual planning retreat, which I've been mentioning throughout all this, and this is mostly for people who are not part of the ASC right now, just as an FYI. So the annual planning retreat is like the huge thing that we would love for everybody to, in the community to get on board and just start attending, because it is so powerful and it really does set you up for such a very, very nice ease into the next year. So next year, we are already doing this. This is Columbus Day weekend. This is great for the parents who have kids that have Monday off. We are going to, if the world allows us, we are going to be meeting in person in Nashville, but also having an online access available. So we will be doing it both virtually and in person if we can. October 8th through 10, 2021. It's a Friday through a Sunday. The ASC supports us by the community. Like there are, now 300 or so people in there that allow you to, reflect together, give you support. We feed off of each other's energy. It's super positive and we hold each other accountable. If you are looking for an accountability partner, you can find one in this community. And then you have us as a leadership team who have your back. If you ever need anything, you can always reach out to us through the community. We also have upgraded networking and accountability tiers, which offer increased group and one-on-one support for an additional fee. But if, based on what you feel you need in terms of accountability, that's something that we can offer. And as one of our team's 2021 plans, we will be starting to create some additional programs for extended learning and support throughout the year, right? Because we don't necessarily want to just be like, okay, you get what you can in October and then you're kind of floundering. We will have additional programs that will support us in those 8 areas that we are excited to be launching next year. So the ASC has a ton of support around this whole annual plan and helping you execute. For those of you, again, who aren't a part of the ASC, just so you know, there's always a month free trial. If you're like wondering, is this something that I want to do? Come and try it for a month. If you don't like it, you can leave. And if you do want to join the community, it's such a minimal fee to just make that commitment to being a part of that community. So you can check us out at www.accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. You get to hear about and have first access to all of the ASC programming. And this is where we will usually announce discounts and offers. So it's a great way to, if you're outside and you're like, maybe I want to do this annual planning retreat, you'll be the first to hear when we're doing a promotion. And, as an example, we've got our 2022 annual planning retreat, which I said before, October 8th through 10, 2021. The cost of it will be $299, but we will give you a heads up that there will be a special discount coming sometime before the end of 2021, but you'll have to be in the ASC to know about it. So I think that's it on my presentation. It's been a while since we've done a webinar with slides, but is there any questions? Gary, have there been any anything
Nothing.
Chat or any other? I know that we're a little bit over already, but appreciate all of you for, and for those of you who watch this on a replay, thank you for watching. Any final thoughts, Gary and Rebecca?
My main thing is just to echo what you said earlier about the big challenge that most people have is making the time for it. But it's all about like doing something that's going to benefit you. In the meditation app that I use, Headspace, the narrator was talking about that a lot of times, especially in times like this, we feel like it's selfish to make time for ourselves. But more importantly, this is going to allow you to show up the way that you need to show up for everyone else. So yeah, make that space for you.
Any other last thoughts, Rebecca? She's like, nope.
No,
Like,
I think
wrap it up.
No, I said my point. Definitely, just stay committed. But I love that, Gary. Yeah, so true.
Yeah. Pat was saying, since the retreat, she's had some family issues to take care of, and she was able to show up because she put it on to this webinar because she put it on the calendar. So we appreciate you, Pat, for and hope your sister is doing okay. And I think hoping to just kind of grow this as a and like spreading the word that this is so important, and this can be an easy. It might not seem easy until you get into it, but this can be a really easy way to live a more intentional life. I feel like there are a lot of people out there who are like, I need to get like my mind straight. Like there's so many things I want to do and I can't even control. Like this is the type of event. Like doing an annual planning session is what is going to help you like declutter that crazy mind of yours. And it's the only thing that, it's a thing that keeps me sane. Like, yes, I had to like, now, incorporate whatever I was doing last year with what I want to do next year. And there's a lot of transition that happens in this time. But it's all good because you're growing, and that's what we want, right? We want to grow and we want to be happy and we want to be fulfilled. And that's what we want to support you in. So again, www.accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. If you're not a part of the community, for those of you that are part of the community that are checking this out, thank you so much for just being here and being a part of this amazing community. And if there's anything that we can do to help you walk through this process, if you weren't able to come to the retreat, you can reach out to any of us through the chat, or you can post something in the community and get help at large. And yeah, we're just here for you. And hopefully you guys will sign up for next year's retreat because it's gonna be fun. Gary's working on all these magic tricks. It's gonna be awesome. All right. See you guys later. Gary and Rebecca, you want to say bye with me and I will stop the live stream. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.